Have your Happy Fishing Post Lab out on the desk for me to stamp during your couple of minutes of discussion time. You'll also need your Tragedy of the Commons if you're getting into your binder right now. Both. So you're going to need your tragedy stuff, and you're going to need your other thing I just said. So tragedy stuff and also your Happy Fishing Post Lab. Next! I'm sure that we can all agree. Shut up, I'm going to throw my shoes. I'm sure that we can all agree Facebook is somewhere between lame and dangerous. However, it does actually offer probably the most convenient way for all of you and me and all my other periods to communicate with imagery in short notice. Let me try this pitch. I know it's a hard sell. Sometimes students ask me questions that I don't want to answer. Like, what's the homework again? Like, shut up, I already put it on the internet, leave me alone. Number two, some kids will ask me stuff that I can't answer, like, when is the so-and-so due? Like, I don't know. I don't worry about homework. My homework is different from your homework. So like when I leave the classroom, I don't know. It's on the board in the class. And sometimes kids will ask me stuff that, like, frankly, I like totally, like, how do I get my EDU sign up? Or what's the access code? Or what time does the counseling office open? And like, I didn't work here. So I have like a generic response on my text. You know how you can like program, are you aware you can do that, where you type in a couple letters and it'll...
shortcuts?
Yeah, shortcuts. I have one that's CFB. And it changes to check Facebook, I don't know. You see, there's this thing called groups in Facebook where you don't have to be friends. You can be anonymous and make dummy accounts. You don't post bikini shots here. Nobody sees your bikini shots there. You can make up dummy accounts. So you could be like mystery cat lover and have like a photograph of like kittens frolicking. And nobody sees who that is, and you're totally anonymous. This isn't like the flirtosphere. This is like using the functionality of Facebook. Don't use Facebook Messenger, by the way, the app, until you talk to people about what that means for your security. Just saying. But, like, you know, it can forward to your phone as messages. It can forward to your email. You can set those messages so you hear about it at night only, or you hear about it whenever they're posted only. We usually get like an annual average of 2 to 5 messages a week, which isn't going to like bomb your phone with crap. And for you, that's a really convenient way to be like, hey, what's the homework? Hey, when does the counseling office open? Hey, did anybody take a photograph of the board on Wednesday? Does anybody know the access code? And seriously, like, you'll probably find a person that has your information on Facebook more quickly than you'll find me on my phone. You know what I'm saying? So, like, as a way for you to get information, I think it's faster and more effective. You don't have to do the whole lame side of Facebook. Share images. And there's one other benefit. It's the only way that I can notify all students of announcements outside of school. I can't build like a group text, because you know that maxes out at 10. You know, ATT on iPhones maxes out at 10. So I guess I could get a separate app and enter 230 messages, so 230 numbers, but I'll probably screw up at least 10% of them. Here, you choose to join, and then like if we have to cancel an after-school film, or I get hit by a car, or I forgot to tell you about the homework, or I find a typo, or somebody leaves their wallet, like it's actually not a bad idea. So we can all make a pledge that we're not gonna like put ads on there for cheap sunglasses or whatever. And I think it's a really good idea. The name of the group is SPHS Apes Get the Year Right. Because there's one every year, but last year's seniors won't know about this year's stuff. So get the name right, and I strongly recommend that you sign up for it. And you can change your notification settings, but if I were you, I would receive all posts. It usually is not that much clutter. You can block, like if there's stuff that's bothering you, you can get rid of it later, but I think it's a good idea. Questions about that? Like the photographs of the whiteboard, those become really valuable. Pretty soon I'm going to start doing a bunch of like graphics. I draw a lot during class, and a lot of times those drawings are helpful. I put like corrections and typos, so like getting the stuff on the board that's one of the easiest ways. But last year, by the 5th or 6th unit, like some kids would just automatically upload photos. Like somebody would just take the photo and it's like, hey, rather than email it to everybody, just put it on Facebook and then everybody has it. So that like saves you some note taking sometimes, and like if you sit in the back, it's easier than walking up every day. Just saying. Also, I'm showing a movie here tonight. The way it works is you show up at 6 p.m., you get a piece of paper, you sit down, watch the movie, and answer the notes on the paper, and then you leave it here. And if you leave the paper with your name and period on it and it's answered, you get credit automatically. Just so you know, you cannot be late. They don't let you in. They stop people once the movie has started. So if you're in the parking lot at like 6:01, you could check to see if the film has started, but they're supposed to start at 6 o'clock, and they're not supposed to let you in once the action has begun. You got to stay for the whole thing. They only take the papers at the very end. Usually they're about an hour to an hour and a half. But sometimes they're really good. Like, I'll warn you if movies are very hippie biased. Some of these movies are like super liberal propaganda. I'll warn you if they're low budget. Some of these movies are literally made like on a handy cam. I'll warn you if they're like foreign or dull, or I showed a movie that's like an hour and 55 minutes. It has like 7 words in it. So I'll give you a heads up. Like I can always tell you the flavor of the films. Coincidentally, the trailers will all be on the Facebook group. But the one I'm showing tonight is called Monumental, and it's about like the history of the first executive director of the Sierra Club, and he was a mountaineer and like a total badass, and did all this like crazy backcountry like first descents on rock and like first descents of snow, and he was like a super rowdy individual, and because of his love of the mountains, he sort of like formed this group of like idiots that would just go rage in the hills. And then they were like, hey, maybe we should start like interacting with the government and how they manage this resource. And the Sierra Club's become like the most powerful environmental lobby on earth. And this guy was the one who went from a bunch of dirtbags to the most powerful environmental lobby. So it's his story. And it has all this historical footage. To make the movie, they found all this like archival video and photograph of like amazing, mind-boggling Sierra stuff. It's like the only movie that I think has a soundtrack I would want to listen to, like of the entire year. This is like one of these. There's one other one that has like a decent soundtrack, but this is like kind of nice, like emo-ish wimpy rock, like folksy wimpy rock. I often recommend them, but this is like probably the only film that I've given to my mom and dad, like, hey, you guys should really check out this one movie, like it's super good. So I will show you a trailer of this film while I stamp your H-dub. And then after the trailer, we will start on Tragedy of the Commons, unless there are other questions about anything else. I'm here for you now, but not for long.
We did that in class, right? The happy fishing?
Yes, we did the happy fishing in class.
Okay. You just took the graphing.
Anything else?
No.
Okie dokie. I hope this works. You know, they blocked YouTube, and the mirroring sucks, and my Apple TV doesn't work. My iPad won't turn sideways. Oh, now it is sideways. Cool! Oh, and then I forgot to turn the screen on. I'm not as smart as I look, kids. Yeah.
I do have a question. It's about the Green Club weekend cleanup.
Yes.
Weekend activities.
Those things.
Tell us when those are, or is there a schedule that's available to us?
I will request that the Green Club post flyers on my upcoming events board. And separately, I will recommend that you join their Facebook group, which is another one, where they do all the planning for these events. Because some kids are just not into the weekend thing, so I didn't want to put that up on here. But in previous years, it's almost the same number of students. I'll get about 80% participation in the class one, and I'll get about 70% participation in the Facebook one. Sorry, in the Green Club one. And so the Facebook group will usually be the best resource for that. And it's the same name, SBHS, Green Club 2014-15. You dig? The trailer's not that compelling.
We were all members of the Sierra Club, a bunch of gung-ho climbers. And they claimed that Shiprock could not be climbed.
You look at the mountain and say, well, let's give it a try. And that was Dave Brower.
We did something like 65 climbs and 31st descent, something of the sort. That's when we're still first descent levels. I really like the feeling when you get up on top. If you like wilderness, you go to work to try to save some of it, so there'll be some more left for the next generation.
The big buildup, as it's been called in the West, was going to destroy a great deal of the wild landscape.
The American political game is played, as we all know, with the word compromise. We bend this way, we bend that way. David Brower was unwilling to bend it all. No compromise in defense of Mother Nature.
Brower was a crusader, no question about it. He was the icon among the environmentalists who wanted everything to stay the same.
The idea was not to win so we could say we won. The idea was to win so that the America of the future would have been somewhat more beautiful than it had been otherwise.
When I first ran the Grand Canyon in 1965, there was scaffolding on the walls, drilling. We thought, well, this is going to happen. We hadn't counted on people like Dave Brower.
I don't think there's any better system than to have the opportunity to persuade people that they can make a difference and to remind them that the price of liberty is internal vigilance, and that goes for wilderness, that you're never sure of that.
He touched greatness in himself, and he was known after that as something more than an ordinary person, as an American hero.
We mountain people call this stuff mountain porn. Where it's like really beautiful imagery of mountain stuff. Like, it's like heartbreakingly beautiful. Okay. First, questions. First, what is a, oh! Before first, I need parents to come to these things at night. A, you might get a ride out of it. B, with no parents, we don't have an after-school film series. every year there'll be like a couple of parents that are like, I love watching movies, I'll go. And like last year we had like 3 parents that covered the entire year. And that's great. And something was get a parent that was like, oh, you know, I'm interested in petroleum, so just let me know about petroleum stuff. Or like you'll have some like rock climber that's like, oh, that's about David Brower, I just want to go to that one. So the trailers will be on Facebook starting the next movie, not this one. In the meantime, actually, can we put the trailer on Facebook? You can do this maybe? YouTube link? In the meantime, write down this phone number, text message mommy and daddy, and be like, hey, could you ever cover movies for us? You just sit there. They can bring their laptop and use my Wi-Fi, they can get work done, they can take a nap. They can bring takeout, you guys can just like chill and watch a movie together. Like, I don't care. But I need a parent in the room. So your parent will text message on Tara and be like, yeah, I'm down for petroleum movies, or I'm down for every movie, or I'm down for this movie. What? That is a 9, and you're a racist. You don't like my 9s? You Americans with your 20 little 9s. Argentina, we have stout 9s. Ours are supported from below. They have heft. Meaty. So there. Well, that was fascinating. Anyway, now, what is a commons? Yes?
A resource that's available to everybody.
A resource that's available to everybody. That's damn fine. Anybody got a different way to say that? Yeah?
Things like animals or like an environment.
Okay, yeah. There's an important detail that we have to point out here. A commons is a shared resource that's freely available. Yeah?
I was going to say that hasn't been destructed in any way.
You know, I think it can be destructed, and as long as it's still shareable, it's still the resource. So, like, I want to remind you that there's, first of all, the ones you can extract. So we talk about fisheries and forests, water supply. Those are all shared things. But in addition to the stuff you can extract, there is stuff that you can, like, fill up, that you can add to. So let me explain what I mean. A clean atmosphere is a resource that we all share. Instead of, you can't like take a piece out of it. But your impact on that resource would be by adding pollution to it. So the resource can be anything that we share and we value, either in absence, like the absence of air pollution and the absence of plastic in the ocean. The resource could be a clean ocean or a clean atmosphere. It can also be something that you pull out and extract, you know, things that you take out. Y'all do what I'm saying here? We good? Yes?
Yeah.
Cool. There's 2 monumentals. There's the one of David Brower. Yeah, you got it, bro. You're on this. Damn, you're good. Okay. And then, what's the tragedy part? And I gotta warn you, don't even say population. Separate problem on top of the first problem. It's like, oh, you have cancer and an ingrown toenail. Like, separate problems. They both suck. Yes?
I said the tragedy is the depletion of these resources by self-interest and competition for those who want to gain the most out of it.
That's pretty good, but yeah.
Like humans taking advantage of the common.
Yeah. Mackenzie Fell, are you just playing with your pen?
Oh, yeah.
Fine. Yeah?
The tragedy is that people are going to want what's better for themselves instead of the greater good for the population. They're going to be greedy in the resource.
Yeah. Anybody know what a tragedy is in like the Shakespearean sense? Is it just a sad story, or is it a sad story with a particular detail?
Kind of like comedic.
It's a sad story. The main character dies at the end, right?
They don't have to die at the end. That's just coincidentally like shorthand. But it is a sad story. Yes?
Is the tragedy that we have no technical solutions to this?
No, that's a separate problem, so that's like the population part of it.
The tragedy would exist because the common exists in the first place. Like you're saying, like the Shakespeare thing is because he like
states that even before the book starts that they're all going to die, that it is a tragedy. It's like
there's a particular detail of Shakespearean tragedy which truly defines the genre. In tragedy, as like an English language phenomenon, there's like one thing that's common about all those stories, and there's usually death at the end, but not every time. The protagonist in tragedies always has something in common. Yes?
It's kind of ironic how they're trying to help themselves, but they end up killing themselves in the end.
That irony is one way to say it, and they do end up losing because...
Wait, do they have something in common with the antagonist?
Very often, but that's kind of a moral issue that's not always true of tragedy, I think. We'll come back to this, because you'll see this connection later, I think, yeah?
It says here, we may call it the tragedy of the commons, using the word tragedy as the philosopher Whitehead used it. The essence of dramatic tragedy is not unhappiness. It resides in the solemnity of the remorseless working of things. He then goes on to say, this inevitableness of destiny can only be illustrated in terms of human life by incidents which in fact involve unhappiness, for it is only by then that the futility of escape can be made evident in the drama.
Inevitable, futile, bad outcome. That is true of the English sense of tragedy. Whitehead says it so strangely that I think that many students were lost by your quote. So because I know another way to say this, I'm like, yeah, I get it. But how many of you thought that like made you dumber? So because I know where you're going with this, I'm like, yeah, that's it. I can fish out the part where it says what I was thinking. But I think a lot of the kids are like, wait, what? I want to watch cat videos. So I'd like everybody to sit with their groups, get ready to move. We're going to put the group 1 summarizers, group 2, group 3, and group 4, and you have 5 minutes to consolidate your work into the one best example. I want it to be really short, like the best summary, the best connections, the best antagony. You have 5 minutes only, hurry up. 1 is the summarizers over here, 1 over here, 2 in that corner, 3 in that corner, 4 in that corner.
Yeah.
Did you see the definition of tragedy common stuff with you from last year?
You guys are all
like if you were like on the spot at like college and you're new to it.
There were so many parts. Okay.
I just have one idea. Alright. Like the
Mine's really long.
I wrote all on
I just said he was arguing about it.
You're supposed to like do something that like you disagree with.
Yeah. So what? Okay. Okay, so what did you say? First one, I said that he argues that Bentham's theory of good is good for the greatest parties is unattainable because he believes that it's impossible for a finite world to support a finite population. But it's only true to a degree because there's many possible ways of solving the issue of not being able to support a population and its survival resources can be solved. Like, for example, the drought. You could like, if there's not enough water for all people, health will be used. There's just so much. We can like make technology with the rain seeds or whatever, and then the water itself. So like take ocean water and make it water that's like okay. Our whole earth is like 75% water. then the water's gonna still be in there. Like it's gonna rain. We're never gonna run out of water, I don't think. Like ever in the world.
Yeah. Definitely not in our generation. Are we getting water anyways?
That it is adding? Yeah.
But that's what she said.
Okay, and then did anyone else argue that? Or like argue that? Okay, so we don't use that. He said he wants it to be really short, so I don't know how.
Okay. Could we have written it on the actual?
I don't care.
I also argued.
Rank them, like the one that we all agree is the best, another one that's pretty good.
What about this?
Maybe this has more importance. Be down about 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Connections to the real world, you got some? Like, this is sort of like examples would be, you got examples?
Wait, I think this is not. Are you talking about the land?
One of mine was the most rapidly growing populations on Earth today in general and most miserable. And I thought that was just like, it's not like you can't really say that because you can't say that like you might consider that miserable, but others might not, you know? So it's like, yeah, so it's not like you can't just. I said something like that. Generalize.
Yeah, and then if you added to that, like,
1 minute.
I disagree with the thing where he said we must make the work calories per person close to as zero as possible. Because I think that if we use our resources efficiently enough and create a supply will allow us to replenish what we should, then we'll be able to create an extra calories.
if we then we can't use the college we would have had to do other things.
Key issue, Paul. Make sure you say that later, but hurry up. We're almost out of time. Almost out of time. 1 minute.
Okay, yeah, right.
Just like summer. Just like you can write down on my face.
Do that one.
You can write like part of the book, and then like
But now there's countries like territories that you can are actually decreasing in population.
I mean,
The death rates are rising.
but it kind of goes back to the point where you said, like, we eventually have to stop reproducing the kid.
Wait, we don't.
That was the very end. The Ayurveda.
Yeah, that Easter Island is not the same thing.
All we have to do is
Yeah. And then we have our notes.
there's a lot of things that just aren't covered up in water systems.
It's been 1968. That's stupid. Paid and half paid.
All of the dollars that are coming in
Huh?
like pasting in this card. It's all here on that.
Where? You watch the guy. There's a lot of funny moments. This guy was like dancing to watch the KFC video. Figure out why she didn't like this. And then this guy was like next to me, like rapping it, singing it, and at the end he was like, but like, he got really bored. He's like, I feel like it got so good. It was an hour. Alright.
It was like 200, so it'll take a little. So, here it comes. We agree that a commons is a resource that we share without structure. So it's an unstructured shared resource. And the tragedy is that
we are unable to make a personal change that would allow us to implement this system.
very possibly. Summary is the best way to say this is, I hate reading to say it. I trust you know. You obviously wrote it.
Yeah.
So now say it without reading it.
Alright, well, tragedy in our society is like perpetuated by our will to survive, but like prosper while surviving. And like if great action isn't taken and we like fail to reserve the commons that are still available to us, then the small number that are still left will inevitably dwindle.
Yes, but explain what the I know what it means, but if I didn't, I'd be like, why is that? And you're like, well, the tragic thing is, what is the tragedy part?
That like people are going to naturally want to do stuff in their own best interest, even if it harms like the group.
Yeah, that's pretty darn close. Anybody else? You said a word that I think is ultra critical, Paul.
Rational.
Right.
Rational as a fact. Like an example of like herding cows. It's like they take like you can add more cows to your supply for more gain overall. But then you think of it like you're grazing and you takes up more land, which is +1 - 1 kind of thing. But then they decide that more cows is better because it's gaining more, and losing the grassland isn't that valuable.
Are there other resources that we share where you can show it makes sense to take the personal benefit even if the resource is overall degraded for the group? All 31 juniors that are enrolled are present. The one senior enrolled is also present. There is no one absent. Yeah, thanks.
Fishing, like each country is going to try and fish as much as possible for their country.
And that's bad for all the fish, right? We're going to run out of fish, right? Yeah. So that's the harm to everybody. Yeah. But why are they going to do that? Couldn't they save the planet?
Nobody wants to because they don't care about the other people.
What if they wanted to? Couldn't they save the planet?
Yeah.
How?
By like setting a quota and only having everybody.
But now you're structuring it. So in an unstructured open sharing, couldn't they save the planet?
It's not really tragedy that they can sustain their entire population.
Even aside from this issue, in the fishery example, this is a fine way to discuss why it's a tragedy.
Maybe if each group only took exactly what they needed.
You're trying to add structures. When we get to solutions, you talk.
Isn't like the kind of idea of the tragedy is that that's pretty much not possible?
Because
there's just too many.
Nope.
People are greedy.
Even if they weren't, what if they're just rational?
It's rational to like try to get as much stuff for yourself.
How about this? In the fishing example, it's open sharing, right? So all of you are nations. We're all looking at the Pacific Ocean. We all fish the Pacific. Okay? I know that you're all fishermen, and you all know I'm a fisherman. So we're all fishermen. Each of you represents a country that's in the Pacific. Just to go with the example you gave me. And we see tuna go by. What if it's the last tuna? I'm like, oh, dude, that's the last tuna. If I take it, I'm the bad guy. I have caused the extinction of the tuna. I will never fish again, degrading the resource we all share, right? They say it's the last school of tuna. So I want to take them for me, and I want to ruin it for everybody else. What happens if I'm like, no, I want to be the hero, and I'm not going to take them? What's going to happen? That's the tragedy. What makes literary tragedy is the protagonist is screwed. That's why they always lose in the end. Because it's damned if you do and damned if you don't. It's a lose-lose scenario, zero-sum games. That's what makes tragedy. Yes?
So if it was the last school of tuna...
Yes, I would take it.
If I were to take it and put it in a sanctuary, which then I could make them reproduce.
Oh, so you're trying to solve problems, and there are two extremes at which we can solve both of these problems. But don't forget that you're no longer talking about a commons. Because the common is shared, by definition. So you're like, oh, if it's not a commons, I can solve this. And we're like, no, that's Sherlock, but it's called the tragedy of the commons. This is not unsolvable problems. It is a scenario in which there's no solution. The scenario in which there's no solution is when a commons is an openly shared resource, like tuna that we can all access. What you're saying is take them out of everyone's access, and I'm like, yes, but you're no longer talking about a commons. So, sure, you weaseled your way out of this. There are solutions. Right on. We'll talk about solutions, I promise. If there's like the last redwood, and all of you could go chop it down, it's going to get chopped down. Because the rational move for every one of you is, someone's going to take it, might as well be me. Right? It's a simple point, really. And remember that we're talking about the commons. Everybody's like, yeah, I know what a commons is, so I can't figure out this tragedy part. You got to remember that you're talking about a resource that's open and shared. If everybody has access to it, if everybody truly has access to it, then you know there's going to be some cost added to your equation. You might as well be the sucker who takes the benefit. Make sense? Other examples? I don't want more examples. Is there a line that really captures this? There's like one that I know, and I know where it is, but I was wondering if you all found it. Yeah.
It's freedom in a commons brings ruins.
That's the sentence I wanted, but I want to go up a couple periods. So I want everybody to go to page 4 of 13 and get ready to circle it, because they just nailed it. Page 4 of 13. They're numbered very, very, very small. So it's on the back of the first sheet of paper. Page 4 of 13. It's written very, very, very small. On page 4 of 13, if you look at the upper right-hand corner, it's the third paragraph, about 3 sentences in. It says, each man, the third sentence, each man is locked into a system where he is compelled to increase the size of his herd without limit in a world that is limited. Look, I memorized that. Did I get pretty close?
Yeah, you can do that right.
Yeah. Each man is locked into a system where he is compelled to increase the size of his herd without limit in a world that is limited. Freedom in a commons brings ruin to all. In other words, the problem is not that there's no way to share. We can agree on ways to preserve tuna. And we can come up with all sorts of plans to share with CARE. That's all doable. But the tragedy is, if we believe in freedom, like everybody will share this and there's no way to stop us, then you know that's not going to go well. On top of that, you all saw that there's also this issue of population, where eventually there is no technical solution to the fact that we can make too many people for this boat to stay afloat. That's a separate double problem. We all good with this? Everybody understand this tragedy part? Any problems with what we've said so far, or with what the author said? Does anything like bug you about this? So let's figure out the solutions, and we're going to start with this analogy that he uses, which I know some of you understand because I heard your math, but I want to make sure that I introduce this analogy with care. It takes longer to explain the analogy than to solve the problem once we have it. So let me focus on this problem. And coincidentally, this has been on every AP test. It's considered one of the 3 mathematical paradoxic choices in logic and game theory. This is like super critical for government, political science, economics. Like, this is the thing that you're going to use this almost anything you study. Unless you study communications, which is not actually worth studying. Okay. Let's imagine this person wants to put a sheep in the commons, and it's called a commons, like the word is for a meadow or a pasture that's shared by a village. Back in the day, people would find a nice grassy spot, and they would build all their houses around it so they could protect all of their animals. So it's like a medieval period, like pre-medieval period. Commons, like they were called commoners, like the people who all shared their land because they had this, you know what I'm saying? House of Commons. That's where it comes from. You know what House of Commons? Like, okay, no, Parliament. Okay. So this is the commons. It's a pasture. They built all their houses around it. This community. Now we can talk about population problems. Like sooner or later, you can put too many people around the meadow. Remember, that's a separate issue. Also a bummer. That's a bummer. That's not a tragedy. This is the tragedy. This guy puts a sheep in the meadow. Now remember, this is an openly shared resource. So all the things that suck about sheep, they spread fleas, they put tapeworms in the water supply, they won't shut up at night, they smell bad, they eat your wildflowers. All the things that suck about sheep, that's going to impact everybody. This person is going to have some harm, but sometimes they'll get some tapeworms in their water, and sometimes his wildflowers will get eaten, and sometimes his kid will get fleas. Everybody's suffering the cost. And if that's one sheep, that cost is being spread across 4 different households because there's no structure to this. Agreed? The cost is split among all the players in the game? Yes? But the benefit is just his, because that's his sheep. That's why he spray painted it. Nobody else gets any of that benefit. So whatever makes benefit of sheep, you can count them at night. They give you wool and they give you meat. And can you milk them? You can milk a sheep's?
I'm sure it's possible.
I'm sure it is possible. Oh yes. We should all try. I want to see video. I mean, they can keep you warm at night. They can do all sorts of great things. That's all for the owner of the sheep. Nobody else gets a cut of that. She's laying. It hurts sometimes. I think. So his neighbor's like, oh, that looks pretty cool. I want to eat some sheep and be warm at night. So the neighbor's like, hey, can I go to Home Depot and buy one of those sheeps? So this guy goes to Home Depot and he gets his sheep. And he spray paints his one. And now, he's up on benefit. And everybody else is up on what? Cost. Everybody else is getting cost. Because now, sure, he's going to lose more flowers, but he's going to get more fleas, and he's going to get more tapeworms, and he's going to be kept up at night more by the constant bleeding of the sheep. Bleat. So, household C goes, I'm getting all these stupid fleas. I might as well get something out of this. Right? For him, it's a smart move, isn't it? So he goes, yeah, I'm going to get me one of them sheeps at Home Depot. They're on sale. So now he's got the warm companionship and the milk or whatever you get out of sheep. And of course, everybody else is starting to drown underneath all of these burdens. Now, people start to look around and they're like, you know, our meadow is getting full of tapeworms and fleas, and they're not getting more flowers. It smells horrible out there. I don't want to go outside. The costs build up and build up and build up and build up. No doubt about it. So what's the smart move? If the meadow's getting ruckus, you could save the planet by not getting the sheep. Could you?
What if everyone shared the sheep?
You and your structure. Quit solving my problem. I'm just trying to describe the problem. If this is a shared resource, and we believe in freedom in this commons, like you're taking away freedoms, and that's fine. And by the way, that's going to be one of the two ways we solve this. But I want to show you that when we share openly, it's tragic. Because you're damned if you're going to make the meadow worse, and you're damned if you don't, because then you're just suffering all these costs anyway, but there's no benefit for you. You see, each man is locked into a system where he is compelled to increase the size of his herd without limit in a meadow that is limited. Right? Because if these people are competing against each other, if they've got more mouths to feed, if one of them has twins, there's only one way to benefit here, which is to add sheep ad nauseum in this like horrifying spiral of death. This is cars and climate change. We're all suffering from climate change. You could be the one dumbass dying of heart disease on his bicycle. Or you could be one of the bad people and drive a car and, you know, climate's after anyway, you might as well get the benefit out of this. Why show up at work all sweaty, smelling like butt? This is what's tragic. We have freedom to share. There's no way out, and that's the point. Damned if you do, damned if you don't, like that. So there's two possible extremes to solve this, and coincidentally, these two possible extremes are the foundation of our political spectrum. They are the motivation. This is the reason you should vote. Because all shared resources on this planet are being managed by one extreme or the other, and when you vote, you tip the scale in which direction you think is best for whichever resource. No solution is perfect here, and this is why we have balanced governance. For land, that'd be my punchline. For land, what is the usually most obvious solution that we use pretty much everywhere so that this guy could say, you know what, I don't want all this impact affecting me. What could he do to save himself or other people's stupid choices? Yes? Yes?
Kill all the sheep.
Now let's assume we're not going to get into criminal behavior. Let's try an actual systemic solution.
Fence off his area.
Yeah, he could fence off some area, right? Anybody know the name of this strategy in the philosophical world?
Private property?
Private property, yeah, privatization. Because now, he's like, oh, I've got a different management practice. Maybe that's the right strategy. He's like, you can do whatever you want with your stupid sheep. I don't want fleas or whatever. They could manage their herd size. So he tries 100, he tries 20, he tries 10, he goes with none, and they see who's better, and the other guy buys out the other people. And good ideas evolve out of this, and this is the philosophy of the free market. This is why globally, land is in some type of private possession, if we include government as a private landowner. About 99% of the Earth's land area is private property. Either belongs to individuals, to corporations, to other governance groups, or government itself. Does that make sense? We privatize land, because that's like historically the way we saw it. This goes back to before the medieval period, so that's kind of the solution that's caught on. Anybody see a limit to the privatization concept? Yes?
Well, because one person could be like just like totally messing up and destroying it, and one person like they have the freedom to do that on their own property.
Yeah, so you do have some, but the concept of the free market is that that person, by having bad ideas, will lose in the end, and good ideas will win. So theoretically, even though you're right, the free market philosophy allows for that. Good ideas win out. This is transferable private property, so that person will lose. What's a practical limitation to privatization? Like, what's the obvious, like, well, that's not going to work with?
You can't subdivide the atmosphere.
Bingo. Here comes the classic visual. I use this every year. Imagine everybody in their hamster wheels of private air bubble trying not to fart. Right? How else are you going to privatize the atmosphere? Like, air is moving. How do you privatize the ocean? How do you privatize tuna? Yeah, that's my one. Oh, dang. Okay. Like, the water's moving and the fish are moving, so you can't really do that with our primary food source, the ocean. You can't do that with our atmospheric water supply, so like the water system doesn't count. You can't do that with air. So for some resources you can't privatize. And let me remind you that there is also a political objection to privatization. You know, you build disparities of wealth, which are the foundations of all sorts of social ills. You know, in order to got rich people, you gotta got poor people, and you gotta wonder, like, how do we manage that separate issue? And so philosophically, a lot of people object to privatization because it has been sort of the tipping point that has eventually led to social ills like tyranny, and slavery, inequities of all sorts. So there's some problems with that solution. What's the separate solution?
To share the sheep, right?
Yeah, and what does it mean to share resources within a group?
Like to split them equally among, or like, or not necessarily equally, but like.
And so what would you call this system of governance where the community shares community property? Called what?
Communism or socialism?
Yeah, you dirty liberal. This concept of shared property and shared governance. The flip side of this, we also need government. You know, these things go hand in hand. If we're all going to share, we've got to make sure we're all sharing fairly. So it's called mutually agreed upon coercion. You should write these things down. The two solutions are privatization at one extreme, mutually agreed upon coercion at the other extreme. And again, like privatization, mutually agreed upon coercion has problems. Remember, mutually agreed upon coercion, that's like people getting all up in your liberties. You've given up your freedom. You can't make your own decisions anymore. If the community decides that you're not going to get more sheep, you're like, wait, but I think I could have more sheep, and it's like, too bad. You don't have that choice anymore. You've lost your freedoms. We as Americans, we have an interesting relationship with government. We believe we have the perfect system of governance compared to all other governments on earth, and separately we also hate government. It's quite a paradox. Americans are almost universally convinced that their government is superior and almost universally convinced that their government is bad. Because what is governance? It is giving up freedoms. It's like, okay, fine, we're all going to decide how to handle this dirt right in front of my house instead of me just putting a fence around it and handling it however I want. And of course, you don't want government all up in your business. Hold on. You don't want to give up all your freedoms. So there are two extremes. Privatization doesn't always work. And mutually agreed upon coercion doesn't always work. Sorry, I don't like it when you pack because I have to stop and it wouldn't take longer. I have to caution you now, you must know both the solutions and the problems with both. It's on video. Privatization and mutually agreed upon coercion, the right wing and the left wing. See, while we have balanced governance, this is why you must vote. If not, other people will decide for you and you'll just be stuck with their choices. Okay, now you pack up and think about it.